Looks like we're recording, so I will get started. My name is James Pepper. I'm the chair of the Cannabis Control Board. Today is Wednesday, August 27th, 2025, and I call this meeting to order. Let's see. I wanted to just say a quick word about the medical use endorsement. As of last week, we are under contract with Cannabis to develop and implement the enhanced training course that's required by law for any bud tender that will be reasonably interacting with registered patients, either at medical-only dispensaries or at a medically endorsed adult use retail establishment. As a reminder, this will be a free course for registered employees that are going to be available at set intervals throughout this year and next, and will include a certification so that even if you're not currently working at a medically endorsed retailer, you can get credentialed to work at one by successfully completing this course. We held our kickoff meeting with the Cannabis team yesterday, where we reviewed just at a high level the topics that are going to be included in the curriculum, the format of the class and the certification, and then a rough timeline for implementation. The recording of that meeting, if it's not up already, should be up on our YouTube page soon. But absent any further delays, our hope is to have that first training session scheduled for the late fall. But we'll keep people informed about the enrollment process and other pertinent information as the details start to fall into place. In the meantime, we do have 2 guidance documents up on our website about the requirements to obtain a medical use endorsement, what it allows you to do. And we're also currently accepting applications to add this endorsement to a retail license. And I believe the plan is to hold a peer networking event in the near future specific to the medical use endorsement, so you can see what it does, how to get one, how to be compliant. And but you can always reach out to licensing if you have any specific questions that aren't covered in those documents. Other than that, I just wanted to approve the minutes from our last regular meeting, which is on July 30th, our evidentiary hearing, which was on August 13th, and then the special meeting we held yesterday on the medical use endorsement, which was August 26th. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next on the agenda is public comment. Just do this the same way we always do. If you have a comment and join via the link, please raise your virtual hands. We'll do our best to call on you in order. And then we'll move to folks that join via the phone. Chris, I see your hand up. Chris, we're not hearing you if you are talking. Patrick, is folks able to unmute themselves?
Yeah, everyone should be able to unmute. There's a little microphone button in the corner of the meeting.
I saw it was Chris Lilly, and the hands down now. But anyone else or a public comment while we wait for Chris to get back? And if you join via the phone and would like to comment, you can unmute your phone line by hitting *6. All right, Jeffrey.
Thanks, Chair. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Terrific. Thank you. Hope everyone's well. Appreciate the public comment space. I'll be brief, and I just want to limit my comments now to, I just want to share that, if the board's not aware, I know that we've been having discussions with you all over the past couple months about this, especially on the sort of heels of this past legislative session, but I just want to take this time to sort of reiterate and to share that, the keeping the application window closed for new retailer license types is really a point of contention amongst the industry right now. There's a strong urge to get that back opened up, and to do so in a way, I want to stress this, that does not further compound the retailer density issue that some towns have. We all know that coming out of the 2024 legislative session, there was a directive from the General Assembly of you all to develop retail siting rules, I believe is the phrasing there. Those rules that you all developed with the industry coming out of 2024 were not filed, as we all know. They were not included in this recent rules amendment process. So we're asking you to consider, and we urge you, not just our members, but also licensees that we're hearing throughout the supply chain, and also patrons, that we need more shelf space. Limited available shelf space is in fact an existential threat right now to the marketplace, and we urge you all to reconsider opening up the application window for retail licensing, and doing so by giving yourselves, empowering yourselves with that mechanism that was not filed during the last rules amendment process, to enact that mechanism through an emergency rules process under the cause of welfare of the industry, which we believe is a just cause for initiating an emergency rules process, similar to what you all did for the hemp-derived products, and to move forward in a meaningful way and begin getting new licenses for retail shops out there across the state, again, without causing greater harm to those where maybe it's concentrated. So appreciate your time. Hope you all have a good meeting, and you'll be hearing from me next month if we don't, we're in the same spot. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Any other public comments? Chris Lilly?
Yes. Am I in?
Yes.
Is it working
Yes,
this time?
you're in.
Yay, yay.
We can hear you.
I'm Chris Lilly. I own and operate Green Mountain Sativa in Stockbridge, Vermont. And I'm just calling to encourage you to begin lifting the moratorium on retail licenses. I'm really scared about what's going to happen with the bottleneck already and all the new cultivators coming in, getting shelf space for them. And this has been a great growing year. So, this is going to be a watershed year, I feel, if we don't have space to get it to market. So that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Sarah?
Hi, this is Sarah Farnsworth with Full Circle Farm. I'm just calling to echo the sentiments of Chris and with Jeffrey with the BGA. I think that we're in a really point of crisis, honestly, and something needs to be done to create a lifeline for producers. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Anyone else for public comment? And again, if you join via the link, just raise your virtual hand. If you join via phone, you can hit *6 to unmute your phone line.
Maybe I can just clarify for the record, the board did propose a citing rule with this proposed rule. That was the one that was noticed during the comment period. It was criticized and withdrawn, but it just to clarify, we did take a shot at that. It's not really that we did not rule.
Sarah?
Can you check the lobby? I think that there might be some folks waiting to get in.
Patrick, can you handle that?
Yeah, okay. There's no one in the lobby. There's one now, but I keep a close eye on the lobby.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy? Andy, you're muted if you're trying to talk. We can't hear you. There you go.
Got it.
there you go.
Sorry. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Two things, and maybe one has already been addressed. I know I was talking to some of you about requesting red lines of the newest rules to be posted by the CCB, given that not every rule was adopted as proposed, or that there are nuances of a word change. I was just wondering if we could proceed with that or if that had been done already.
Thanks for the comment, Andy.
Yep.
Gabe, I'll let you address that after we close the public comment section. Yep.
Great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yep. Thank you, Andy. Anyone else for a public comment? Last call. Okay. I will close the public comment window. Thank you for those comments. Gabe, do you want to address that last point? I was CC'd on a few emails about this.
Yeah, I can just clarify what Andy's asking for, which makes a lot of sense, is, hey, can I have a red line that compares not the existing rule to the new rule, or not the old rule to the new rule, but the first proposed rule to the final proposed rule? Oddly, that is not part of the APA process, so we've never made one of those. I was joking with her that last year I offered one of the committee thinking I was being helpful, and they sent it back because they just, this isn't part of our process. I can try to make you one of those based on version histories, Andy. So I'm happy to reach out to you offline. I just returned after receiving your email, so a week and a half ago or so.
All right. Great. All right. Well, we'll move down the agenda then. Next up, Olga, is the Executive Director report.
Hey, sorry, I
Yes.
just got on. Can I make a public comment if it's not too late?
Sure. Yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
I'm sorry about that. Hi, my
No
name's
problem.
Nick, and I'm speaking on behalf of many cultivators and manufacturers who would like to keep their names anonymous, but who are being impacted by the current pause on retail licensing. It's now been almost 12 months since the closure of retail licensing, and this time, the problem of oversupply from cultivators has only gotten worse. More than 50 cultivators have relinquished their license, and 0 retailers have relinquished their licenses. After looking at the list of the 110 retailers, I found that at least 44 out of the 110 retailers also have cultivation licenses. Many of these retailers have gone from buying primarily from cultivators to producing their own supply and have cut out many cultivators. This has left 379 cultivators playing a devastating game of musical chairs for any available shelf space. Struggling cultivators trying to find retail partners have found that most established retailers have no appetite for taking on new cultivator partners. Establishing relationships with retailers as early as possible after their initial licensure is always these cultivators' best chance at getting shelf space. As cultivators find no outlet for their products, many have made the tough decision to relinquish their license and either destroy their product or sell it at rock bottom prices. This desperate offloading of their product as a last-ditch effort to hopefully break even at best has the potential to damage the market stability. Also, the CCB was tasked with the goal of transitioning legacy operators into the rec market. As small cultivators relinquish their licenses, it is inevitable that some will just take their new and improved grow spaces and go back to the legacy market. This only strengthens the legacy market and hurts the rec market. The current power dynamic of this industry is incredibly off balance due to the extreme oversaturation of supply and not enough retail outlets. Certain manufacturers are even taking advantage of this imbalance in the market and in desperation of cultivators by attempting to drive down the price of biomass to only $50 a pound. These prices will lead to many businesses losing everything. Sometimes that even means the cultivators' life savings, 401ks, and even home equity lines of credit. As you all know, there are still many towns who do not have any dispensaries. There is even an entire county with 0 dispensaries. And in my county, which is over 32 miles long and 195 square miles, only has 2 dispensaries. This leaves consumers either driving long distances to their nearest dispensary or continuing to purchase cannabis from the legacy market. Even towns that have 1 dispensary face micro monopolies due to the lack of competition. During this pause on retail licensing, a secondary market for retail licenses has emerged. Many cultivators have been receiving emails from realty companies advertising a couple of dispensaries that people are trying to sell for millions of dollars. While no one's likely to be willing to spend that much money on a retail location, this just illustrates what the pause on retail licensing has caused and will continue to cause. When cultivation licensing was closed, prospective Tier 1 cultivator applicants who were on the cusp of being ready to submit their applications were at least given a 1-month window every year to apply for that license. Such courtesy of a 1-month window per year was not given to prospective retailer applicants after licensing was closed. This has left many who had started investing in their future retail location with no clear timeline on when they may be licensed. Some have spent a small fortune on their prospective retail location or were just not quite ready to submit their retail application before this pause. This bill was just signed last month, that gives the CCB the ability to look at retail licensing and saturation more on a regional perspective. I know it has only been a month, but I hope that the board moves the process along as quickly as possible. I do not think the CCB should allow more retailers in a few of the towns that are actually saturated. The CCB's proposed rules changes for retail licensing properly address retail density. And if those rules had been or are in the future adopted, towns like Burlington, Rutland, and Morrisville, and a few others would not be allowed to have any more retail locations. For the sake of this industry, please reopen retail licensing with limitations like I listed as soon as possible. I also want to thank you for helping making this the best cannabis market in the country and accessible to the average Vermonter trying to start their own cannabis business in every other legal state. Most of us wouldn't even have had the ability or the money to enter the market. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick. And I did close the public comment window, but I'll accept the last person that just raised their hand as our last public comment. And you can always comment on any issue, related to the board's work or elsewhere on the homepage of our website. There's no need to just wait to those emails go right to our inboxes. So, but I do see one last hand up if you want to comment.
Hi, thank you. My name is Pierre. I'm with Green Mountain Dreams. I've been in the market since it opened. We have renewal up for board approval coming up. As a producer, Tier 1, indoor, I echo everything that Nick at Emerald Vision just said. This retail moratorium is hurting producers, small producers like myself, who do not have access to their own retail operation. I would also ask the board to fix this with the citing rule that they worked on last year. And lastly, I would also ask that the board consider options for holding retailers accountable that still have bills unpaid to producers and cultivators, especially at license renewal time. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to clarify where we are in the agenda, we are closing the public comment window and moving to the executive director report.
Great. So here we go. Our monthly executive director report for August. So first, as always, a quick update on our education and outreach initiatives. Many of you may know that earlier this month, we hosted a peer networking event in partnership with the Vermont Department of Labor to review employment laws that are important for our community to be aware of. Thank you to everybody who attended, and we hope that this recording will be a great resource for businesses and employees with questions about classification. Our staff is already actively working on the next topic, which will be on medical endorsements, as the chair noted. So stay tuned as Patrick will advertise broadly the date and time once we finalize our plans. And now moving on to the licensing data, which is good as of the 19th of this month. First, a snapshot of our active licenses. You're looking at a year to help us all visualize the trends and fluctuations in numbers. So we had 605 this month, which is 9 fewer than the last month, but 45 more when compared to August of 2024. And again, we'll continue tracking this data to track the health of the market and quickly identify any anomalies. That is the first side. And another slide here on active licenses to just add additional color. So 3 months worth of data here. Again, the total number of active licenses is 605. Let's see, a couple quick notes here. You may have noticed we are reporting an addition of a retailer. Obviously, this is not a new establishment because the window remains closed for retail applications. All it is a reflection of an administrative transition by our integrated licensee to individual licenses, which includes a retail license. So that's what's happening here. And I guess the only other thing of notice is the drop in our cultivation licenses. So we are showing a net decrease of 10 months over months. And we'll look at the cultivator data next a bit closer.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. But first, a quick look at the priority status slide. Nothing, no changes here, months over months. Okay, so here is the cultivator slides. So here you're looking at their current active cultivation licenses. That's a familiar slide. The decrease of 10 cultivators is accounted for here. Overall, indoor tier 1 is our most common license type still, followed by outdoor tier 1 at 78 and mixed tier 1 at 76. Overall, percentage-wise, indoor is at 43, outdoor 31, and mixed is 26% of our community. And proportions continue to remain steady months over month so far. And then same cultivation data broken by type and tier, but across 3 months now. Blue is August data, if you want to track the color. So now you can see the exact month-to-month changes. So say we were to look at outdoor tier 1s, you'll see that we dropped by 5 licenses from 83 in July to 78 in August. Indoor tier 1 fell by 1 and mixed tier 1 declined by 3 from 76 to 73. We are reporting some minor shifts in larger tiers as well. Primarily, it includes businesses that scale down to tiers that better align with their operations. For example, we had a mixed tier 5 moving down to a mixed tier 4, and an outdoor tier 2 renewing as an outdoor tier, outdoor tier 4 renewing as an outdoor tier 2. So again, those are the main changes that we have for you to review this month. Okay. Now onto the licensed canopy capacity square footage data. Again, 12 months of data here. Indoor is in light green and outdoor numbers are in yellow. The total amount of licensed canopy is down 37,000 square feet, July to August, but overall holding steady. So that's, and now we're transitioning to a quick look at our manufacturing data. So 3 months worth of data, numbers are very steady, months over months. We're at 95 active manufacturing licenses for August. And again, not much change months over months. Okay. Now, a little more interesting information, a few slides on issuances and relinquishments. I know that's been a topic of interest to the board. So here, we're looking at a slide that's looking, so there are 2 sort of charts. The chart on the left shows the priority status of the businesses receiving new licenses. And we have 3 months worth of data here. And the chart on the right shows the license types issued during the same period. So if we were to look just at the August data, we'll see that we had issued 4 new licenses. All of them went to standard licensees. I would note that 3 of those went to a single business. That's the former integrated licensee that turned in its integrated license and instead received a separate retail cultivation manufacturing license. And in addition, we issued one propagator license in August. So that's how to read this data. I would also note that all of this new licenses went to the existing licensees. We did not have any new folks entering the marketplace in August. So that is our issuances for this month with a look back at June and July. And now we'll take a look at the relinquishment data. Again, 3 months of data here. Same format. On the left, we're looking at relinquishments by the priority status of the businesses. And on the right, we're looking at the details on types and tiers of the licensees who relinquished. So if we look just at our August data, we recorded 13 total relinquishments. 7 came from our economic empowerment folks, 2 from social equity licensees, and 4 standard licensees relinquished. And then on the right-hand side, you could see that most of the exits continue to come from our cultivators and manufacturers. The largest area of impact is outdoor tier 1, so it's a pale yellow color. And we saw 4 outdoor tier 1 licenses relinquished in June, 4 more in July, and 6 in August, with a trickle of other. So we are seeing a steady trickle across other categories as well, with tier 1 outdoor leading the way. Okay, so that's what we got for the licensing data. And if everybody is ready to move on to compliance and enforcement, we'll do that. All right. So familiar slide here, 92 inspections in August and 13 active investigations recorded by our compliance and enforcement team. As you could probably see, most visits and all of the investigations focused on cultivation and retail in the months of August. Now, the types of investigations here, you could see that the different colors represent different license types. So orange represents retail investigations and green represents cultivation investigations. So you could probably tell that inspection violations have been the focus of our compliance team in August.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Other types, other actions that our compliance team performed. Here it's a 3 months worth of data. So focus on the blue, which is our August data. So the last block represents complaints, and we're reporting 35 for the month of August. We also issued 10 letters of warning, 8 new notices of violations, and a number of product destructions and documented cessations of operations. So a busy month for sure.
Yeah.
And now a little more color here, looking at the breakdown of the types of complaints that our compliance team received and processed. Pretty standard categories. The one new category I wanted to highlight is the internal referrals. So this reflects the referrals from the licensing team to our compliance team regarding licensees who are out of compliance with Rule 2.2.5A, which requires completion of an enforcement seminar every 3 years by principal and controllers. So a reminder to folks that this needs to be done. Quite a few businesses have been in operation for 3 years, so we are recording those sort of the situations where the training requirement is not met. So that's the one new thing that you're seeing here. Okay, and now
Olga,
closer
I wonder
look.
if you just
Could you just take a minute and say where people would find that training?
Oh, yes, it's on our website. Patrick has done an amazing job updating our website. So folks looking for that could just search for trainings, and it would just, the page will bring up, and the first thing you see on the training page is the training targeted to meet this specific requirement for principals and controllers. So it is available. It's free. So folks should go ahead and take care of that requirement.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So back to the cessations of operations. So reasons here that the business is cited to our compliance agents listed here. Pretty clear that market access, cost of banking, profitability are the main reasons. Some additional color. So overburdensome regulations. It really is primarily a complaint around the requirement to do inventory tracking. A lot of our folks have some struggles with that part of the process. Same goes for requirement to do testing and manage that process. So those things have come up. Labor issues are just related to not being able to secure or maintain workforce. Site issues, usually landlord related. So that's what those reasons are. Okay. Letters of warning or different issues being addressed this month. Pretty straightforward here. And one last slide here, notices of violations. License requirements usually have to do with banking or insurance. So those are captured here, and then sales and operating outside of license, pretty familiar reasons that somebody might get a notice of violation. So that's what we got for the compliance and enforcement. And we are ready. We'll take a quick look at our medical program. So as you could probably see here, the total patient count was actually trending down until April, but we are now showing small increases in the last few months, sort of consistently. So the overall increase in our patient count when compared to last August is we're up 137. So we're seeing small, but obviously steady growth. So we'll keep an eye and see if we are going to hit 3,000 in the next couple of months. Who knows? So that's what we got here. And with that, we are ready to move on to staff recommendations for licensure. And I'm going to dive right in here. We do not have any new applicants on the list for this month. So we are going straight into our conventional license renewals. 4 slides for you today. Lots of great work by our licensing team, processing a lot of materials, and of course by our compliance team doing lots of site visits. So indoor cultivators looks like take up the first page here. Oh, it's here once. Yeah. Very consistent. All right. Second page, our mixed cultivators. Next, page 3, outdoor cultivators and a wholesaler. And the final page, manufacturers and retailers. So all of these licensees, renewing licensees on this and the previous 3 slides have submitted their materials in a timely manner, and all of them are recommended for board's approval.
Great. And I don't know, I'll say what I always say. I don't know if we have anyone that joined by phone, but this data will be up on our website, usually by the end of the day. So you can see if you were on the list, if you're waiting for a renewal.
Do you want to do a motion for those
Sure.
folks?
Julie, do we have a motion to approve the recommended renewals?
I move that the board adopt staff recommendations to accept the applications listed with issuance subject to final payment of required fees and any other contingencies.
And I will second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, next here, we are looking at an applicant who wishes to change their tier. It's an incumbent licensee who would like to move to a smaller tier. So tiering down from a mixed tier 2 to a mixed tier 1 to better match their actual operations. And our licensing team recommends that this is allowed and approved.
Great. Any questions about this?
This is a renewal and a tier change. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve this application and tier change?
I move that the board adopt staff recommendations to accept the application listed for renewal and changes in type tier change with issuance subject to final payment of required fees and any other contingencies.
And I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you again. So next, this slide represents a request for ownership changes. Our licensing team received all necessary documentation to support this change and recommends the approval. For some additional context here, the establishment is removing a couple principals and adding a new principal within their regularly scheduled renewal window. So it's a renewal and an ownership change.
Any questions about this?
No.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the renewal and ownership change?
I move that the board adopt staff recommendations to accept the applications listed for renewal and ownership change with issuance subject to final payment of required fees and any other contingencies.
And I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on. So that's a new one. So you're looking at our first two requests for medical endorsement. These two are regularly scheduled renewals who have applied to add a medical endorsement to their adult use licenses. Both establishments provided policies and procedures specific to the medical use endorsement that meet the standard. And they have received site visits from our agents as well to verify that they have the space properly set up to operate within those procedures. Our licensing team recommends that the board approve issuance of the endorsed licenses with just a reminder that Rule 3.4.3b requires that enhanced training for patient-facing retail staff is in a rule. And consequently, there will be a slight delay before medical sales can begin at these locations. And as the chair noted, that we expect the training module to be ready in the coming months. But up until then, there's a delay.
Great. And if I remember correctly, this is retailer number 1 and 2.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yep.
Are either doing drive-through
No drive-through.
or curbside?
They will be doing curbside, at least one of them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, more motivation to get that training up and going.
Yeah.
We'll work hard on that on our end. Any questions for Olga about these?
Just so I
Melissa's
understand. Oh, sorry.
Julie,
Just have a
Melissa's
clar-
also in the room. I was just going to say, if you have questions for licensing or Olga.
No, I've already bothered Melissa enough this morning, today. I forgot my question now.
Sorry.
So just to clarify that we're going to move to approve these today, but likely won't issue the endorsement until the training is complete. Do I understand that correctly?
I think I'll let you.
No, I mean, we will issue because endorsement is attached to the license and we will
Got it.
issue a license. So endorsement follows the license. So that will be an approved and issued license with an endorsement.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the endorsement cannot be put in place actively until the training requirement is met.
So administratively,
Okay, thank
this
you for
is better
clarifying.
for us because it matches the endorsement, and they're okay with these people have the choice whether or not they wanted to wait until the training module is on. Okay.
Yes, because they could have renewed their retail license as a standalone retail license and then applied at a later date for the medical endorsement. But they chose to do it now to be ready. And I'm sure there are some things they could work on in the meantime. And hopefully our training will be available soon.
Yes. So
great. Look forward to seeing more
of
those in the coming board meetings.
Thank you to both of these. Honestly, we really, when we were contemplating this, had no idea if there was going to be any interest in it at all. We tried to reduce the burden on retailers to get this in order to have better access for patients. And it's great to see at least two. I mean, this will represent almost doubling in the amount of dispensaries in the state. So
I know there's a lot of interest out there. Just gotta work your way through the administrative process.
Okay. All right. Any final questions on these two? This is a new one for us. No?
Nope.
All right. Is there a motion to approve these renewals with a medical use endorsement?
I move that the board adopt staff recommendations to accept the applications listed for renewal and medical use endorsement with issuance subject to final payment of required fees and any other contingencies.
I will second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Another one for you here. So that's our first executive amendment since the process changes that went into effect with new rules.
Mm-hmm.
So here it's a change of location outside of the normal renewal period, which is now done via an amendment rather than through the early renewal process that it used to be. So this particular cultivator is moving from Morristown to Charlotte. The Charlotte Local Control Commission was notified of that on June 17th of this year, and we did not receive a response within the 45-day window. What we know is that the licensee and the new landlord have provided a signed intent to lease agreement, and the fully executed lease will be a contingency of issuance once and if approved. The site visit has taken place already with no concerns from the compliance team, and our licensing team recommends this to be approved.
Can I ask you a question that you may not have an answer to right now? It's my opinion that we do not need to enforce setbacks for outdoor cultivators. But do we know if the outdoor portion of this mixed tier will be within a setback or whether Charlotte has even adopted a setback?
Good question. I'm not sure.
Yes.
We can look into that a little bit.
I guess their opportunity to object is passed.
It has. That doesn't change anything about somebody's obligation to comply, obviously, but our obligation to check before issuing the license is gone.
Okay.
And as we sit here, I don't know whether they've ever acted on setbacks.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I know, Melissa, that these folks are moving in a location that was previously a cannabis operation. Was that one outdoor indoor mix? Do we know? Because we don't know. Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, again, I don't think it's necessarily our obligation to enforce local setbacks. So.
Okay. Might be just curious to know. For ourselves.
I think our obligation should be to inform the cultivator that there may be a setback that they need to comply with, but I think,
Yeah, I think we have our guidance on the website on municipal guidance, so folks could familiarize themselves. That does talk about municipality having that authority.
Our amendment request for a location change. So say that they should look into the setback.
So we do.
So the
Yeah.
form says it.
The
That's-
form says, yeah,
Right,
it's
the
on
form
you.
reminds them, and then of course, the municipalities are moving all the time, so
Right.
it's impossible really for us to keep track of from here. So every person who looks to move should check.
All right, perfect. All right. Any questions about this one for Olga, Melissa, Gabe?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve this license amendment?
I move that the board adopt staff recommendations to accept the application listed for a location change with issuance subject to final payment of required fees and any other contingencies.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. One more here. The 13 establishments here are all up for renewal and have provided their required documents to our team. However, their complete filings came in outside of the renewal window. So they were late. All of them did provide supplemental narratives with written explanations for their late filings. All have been shared with the board in advance of this meeting. Our staff recommend that the board accept and approve this late completed applications as it is authorized to do by Rule 115.1D.
Okay. Any questions? No?
Assuming this is all everybody's first request for being late.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. We are tracking that. So yeah, now that we have quite a bit of data, we will flag folks who late again if they are. Yep.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Is there a motion to accept and approve the late renewals recommended by the staff?
I move that the board adopt staff recommendations to accept and approve the applications listed for renewal with issuance subject to final payment of required fees and any other contingencies.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you for that. And that's our last slide here. That's our one renewing establishment that has yet to satisfy all of their prerequisites for renewal. They have filed an explanation for untimely filing under Rule 115.1DI. We've shared the records with the board ahead of the meeting, and at this time, the establishment is working actively with our licensing staff on completing their renewal application. If the board finds renewal appropriate, our staff recommend continuing this license until the next regularly scheduled board meeting in September.
Any questions about this one?
It's the same question as last time, but you answered that, I would imagine, for this person too, if they continue to be late.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any, is there a motion to approve this request for a continuance?
I move that the board adopt staff recommendations to accept and continue the late application listed until the board meeting in September 2025.
I will second.
And a clarifying question, that's the next regular board meeting? Not the evidentiary hearing mid-month?
Correct.
Yes, okay, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that is all we got for you today.
All right, thank you. That was a lot of work that the team here has been doing. Congratulations. These are moving along. I think next on the agenda is a discussion of the Act 56, which was H321 report. That report is in section 12A. As with many things in the legislature, good ideas that don't really have enough support at the moment get put into a report requirement for the board to kind of continue to work at and bring some new information to the legislature for next year. I think what we saw in section 12A is a request to adjust fees to better promote the intent of the General Assembly to encourage participation in the regulated cannabis market by small local farmers and social equity applicants. And then a second part of that report is to look at whether a portion of the cannabis excise tax that's collected, the 14%, should be allocated to the Cannabis Business Development Fund and the Land Access and Opportunity Board. So the Cannabis Business Development Fund, as many people know, is it's a fund that's at ACCD. It's administered by Commerce and Community Development to support social equity businesses. There's a list of statutory kind of allowed uses for that fund. And then the Land Access and Opportunity Board is a separate board, really unrelated to the Cannabis Control Board, but has a mission that in some ways dovetails with our mission around social equity, which is to support safe access to land and housing for marginalized communities, historically marginalized communities. I really, as we've been trying to dig into these reporting requirements, I see these two questions about adjusting fees to better support the intent to support small local farmers, social equity, and the Cannabis Business Development Fund. I feel like these are interrelated issues, even though they were requested by different committees. The kind of fee report was requested by the tax committees, Ways and Means and Finance, whereas the Cannabis Business Development Fund report was really requested by Senate Economic Development. But if the idea of changing fees or changing the market structures to support small local farmers and social equity applicants, it's kind of inextricably linked towards getting more economic development for those very people. So, I have a few words that I'd like to say. I guess out of necessity, even though these are interrelated issues, out of necessity, we've decided at the board to kind of divide the labor to get this report done in a timely manner. So I'm just taking the lead. We're all working on this together, but I'm taking the lead on the fee portion of this, and Julie and Kyle are taking the lead on the Cannabis Business Development Fund portion. But I think ultimately these two sections are going to be very closely intertwined. So I have a few words about kind of my vision for the fee portion, and then we can have a discussion about that, and maybe I'll turn things over to Julie and Kyle to talk about the second half.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
All right. So I've mentioned this many, many times. I'll just kind of level set again that generally speaking, the Ways and Means Committee and the Finance Committee like to evaluate fees across state government at set intervals. And they usually do it every 3 years. Our fees were first adopted in 2022. So this is actually a good time for them to evaluate whether they should be adjusted. Generally speaking, fees are supposed to fully cover the service that's being provided for that fee. The legislature decided in this context that really shouldn't, that would lead to astronomical fees that really wouldn't be make the market very inaccessible to people without the kind of support of banks and lending and lines of credit that these fees, this whole industry is built on essentially private capital. So the fees really can't be as much as they would be in maybe other contexts. So over the summer, I've been reaching out to a number of licensees of various types and tiers to understand what their startup costs are, their cash flow, their operating expenses, and how impactful adjustments to their fees might either help or hurt them. Not surprisingly, no one I've spoken to really has the cash on hand to weather dramatic increases to fee amounts. The proposal that we saw earlier this year was to double a lot of the indoor cultivation fees. And I don't think that is something that really it may have a dramatic impact on the existing indoor cultivators. Also, I've heard fairly consistently that minor fee reductions are welcome but they're not really the thing that's going to make a huge difference to the viability of a business. Certainly reduce the fees, but that's not the thing that's holding back our ultimate success. And I think that's reflected in the kind of relinquishment reasons that we saw. There's other things going on in this industry that make it very challenging to succeed. It's issues like how products are registered, including the extending the length of those registrations, creating more opportunities for small cultivators to process and retail their own products. Those are the types of things that are going to be more impactful than, maybe a 25% reduction to a fee. An outdoor cultivation fee is $750. So reducing that down even by half isn't, that's not really a golden ticket here. So I know those things about, changing product registration and, finding more pathways to the retail market. That's not news to us, that those are the important things. We've been hearing about that. We've actually been writing reports about that since the inception of the board. I think, every year we kind of push the Overton window on those topics a little bit further open. But we saw last year, we just didn't have enough a groundswell of support to even do a basic farmers market that was run through a retail license. So, we're not quite there yet. But I think that these issues can be more fully fleshed out in the context of a fee report, because these all involve fees, either the implementation of new fees or the changing of what a fee pays for. So I think that we can really kind of look at, maybe create a little bit of a roadmap for the legislature and a little bit of a better, clearer picture as to what some of these topics might entail in this fee report. Another desire that I've heard is for the board to form an official rules advisory committee so that any changes to adult and medical use rules are kind of done in a systematic and transparent way, and have just a number of people around the table that can really raise issues and influence how they're implemented. This is essentially the system that the Administrative Procedure Act is intended to create, with its notice and comment periods and LCAR's approval and all the rest. But having a official rules advisory committee might help formalize new rule development, might help formalize the way we implement new legislation in a way that really incorporates, impacted stakeholders, and hopefully doesn't catch people off guard. You kind of hear that from time to time, that even though we went through the APA, some people just didn't know about a rule change or that it was coming. It feels like they get regulatory whiplash from time to time. So my plan between now and the end of October is to kind of widen the aperture a little bit, organize a few open meetings with whoever from the industry, from anyone who's impacted by what we do here, to join and to flesh out these issues that I mentioned today, or any that I missed. And of course, anyone that would like to participate in those, please reach out to ccb.info@vermont.gov with something kind of conspicuous to this project in the title of the email, maybe Act 56 or fee discussion, something that can kind of clarify that you want to be part of this discussion. We have a list running already that Patrick's been keeping. So we have a few names to kind of include in this project, but these will be open meetings. They'll be properly noticed. Our website and events calendar will be updated, but that's kind of the plan. And then my hope is after we have some of these, I can start to organize these ideas in a way that might make sense for the legislature to easily digest, so that we don't have to keep coming back, and start from, the starting line, ground zero, every single time we talk about these issues. I don't know if you guys want to comment on that. It's nothing. This is the process we almost always follow, so it's nothing new here. But that was kind of my plan for dealing with this section of the 12A report.
I think that sounds great. I think we can certainly kind of take a step back and look at like a mini market structure analysis through the lens of, how viable this is for certain licensees. We clearly hear a lot about that in public comment. And if we're going to consider new opportunities to get your product or your flower to the retail market, whatever that looks like, it means, we want to make sure we get that right. And that kind of dovetails with a lot of the density stuff that I think we're doing at the same time. So I think, sequentially, it kind of makes sense to kind of get that kind of input, and that can further our input from how we view the density lens. But certainly, we've never tiered retail. There might be a groundswell of thought around different tiers of retail and what that looks like and what that means. I think we've got a lot of really smart people in this market that might have some good ideas that we haven't heard yet.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's hard to talk about how to better support. I said this already, small cultivators, social equity applicants without, just putting money directly into their pocket, which is part of what the Cannabis Business Development Fund does. Mm-hmm. So I know you guys have been working also behind the scenes with some agency partners and some other entities in the state, and evaluating some other state models. I'd love to hear kind of where you guys are at on your end of this and what you think the coming months might bring.
Before we move on to that, Pepper, can you just remind me? I know that we have a market analysis coming from the consultants that we're working with, but I can't find quickly when that is due. I just want to make sure that we line these up appropriately so that we have that market data and what we propose kind of at the same time.
My understanding is that we'll probably have some preliminary results of that by the end of September. Okay. I think they're trying to gather all of the data to do the analysis the first week of September, the first 2 weeks of September. So we'll probably have some early results that we can talk about maybe in these stakeholder meetings, maybe a public meeting or whenever else, that will certainly inform this discussion.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then Kyle, you want me to just table set a little bit the life of the Cannabis Business Development Fund?
Sure.
And I thought I would just share, and Pepper alluded to this, I think every year, if not every year, almost every year of our existence, we've been asked to opine on the same question about community reinvestment and, whether or not there should be a more regular or more predictable source of funding for the Cannabis Business Development Fund. So what's different about the way we can approach it now is that we have all that history, and we've done some studies in the meantime and gathered some data. And as Pepper alluded to, we've gotten a little bit better at building those agency partnerships with ACCD and some of the other agency partnerships. And I think Kyle is going to talk about that. But just as a refresher, I thought I would share 2022 was the first time that we were asked to provide a report. And at that point, we recommended 5 to 10% of the excise tax into the Cannabis Business Development Fund and a community reinvestment fund, although the board did not assign a dollar amount or a percentage to that. And then in 2023, we recommended again that there be a regular source of funding for both community reinvestment and the Cannabis Business Development Fund. And then last year, as you all probably remember well, we convened a working group that came up with a similar recommendation of a $1 million appropriation to the Cannabis Business Development Fund, which is about 4.5% of the excise tax, and then 25% to the Land Access Opportunity Board for their work, which I think is very akin to community reinvestment. So we have a lot of history now, and then just to sort of put some shape on the amount of money we're talking about when we talk about appropriations or when we're making our recommendation. The FY 2024 excise tax amount was about 17 million, and the 25 amount was about 20 million. So we have, like I'm saying, lots of data to understand the trend of the excise tax, to understand the trend of the board, what we've been thinking in the past, and a little bit more understanding about how the funds have been used. So ACCD has given out now, I think, 3 rounds of beneficiary payments, about $5,000 each to social equity folks. They have continually engaged with roads, and we heard a couple months ago from Nathan Davidson from ACCD some data around how people have used that and the use of that program. And then more recently, they've been trying to put together some workshops. One issue that they've run into, though, is getting people into those workshops and finding ways to connect with people. So again, we've been working with ACCD to try to figure out what is the right path for support, based on what we know as regulators and what they know as professionals in sort of economic development. And Kyle, I don't know if you want to talk more about the conversations that you've had with ACCD and some others.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, Julie kind of giving that introduction is important. And I think it's also important to recognize that, if you've had access to to the Cannabis Business Development Fund up until this point, your needs of what you think you needed at the beginning and what you think you might need in 2025 and what you think you might need next year, the year after, are going to change. And so I think one of the things that I know that our consultants are doing is doing some focus groups with certain social equity folks and some small cultivators, because I think there is, and we've made this recommendation last year to kind of invite the small cultivators access to that fund after social equity folks have utilized it, to kind of better understand what can best help your business from an assistance perspective now. And I know that kind of back and forth from a focus group, and I like focus groups only because it takes us out of the equation, and some folks might be more comfortable talking about need to one of those professionals versus a government agency. And so I think those are going to be really helpful. We've done that in the past, but I think the results could even be a little bit more pointed as we move towards a lot of what we're hearing with where the market is, especially for cultivators. We have been trying to I think we've been focused on the dollar amount over the last couple of years and not really telling the story and the full picture of how that dollar amount should and will be utilized to the full extent that it can be. And so I think Julie and I have really undertaken an exercise to kind of find other strategic partners around the state, ACCD, of course, who manages the fund, but to kind of not reinvent the wheel and understand how we can look to relate what cannabis from a cultivation, manufacturing, selling it market is, and kind of and make sure folks know in the food, ag, and even commercial space that this shouldn't all be too unfamiliar to you if you think about it in the right way. There are other entities around the state that do provide grants directly for your business. There's not a lot of them, but they do, and they are run through state dollars. And there's also grant opportunities for supply chain experts and service providers and a host of other trade show opportunities and grants for producer associations. And how do we connect this industry into those opportunities, not just because then we would be eligible for certain things, but it would invite folks that are looking at those opportunities from a service provider perspective, from a supply chain expert perspective, to view cannabis in a different light, because they might be able to bring resources to the table that we otherwise wouldn't have. So we're exploring a lot of those opportunities in addition to the other things that the Cannabis Business Development Fund does. Like, there is a direct beneficiary payment. How effective is that? Should we increase those payments? Should we lower those payments? What are the other mechanisms that can be helpful within the context of what the statutory requirements are of that fund, and how we can make suggestions to better utilize that fund moving forward. And so we've really undertaken an exercise on a little bit of scenario planning too, because so much could happen that kind of affect at the federal level that are beyond our control. Like, there's different pathways that cannabis can be viewed through from a how legal it is perspective, to kind of make sure that help is available to folks when and if that actually does happen, but also how can we start preparing for certain scenarios that are more likely than others to actually take place. So Julie and I are doing a lot of kind of work behind the scenes to kind of set the table on if we're going to request another dollar amount that's in line with most likely with some of the numbers that Julia has already mentioned. Like, how can we not reinvent the wheel and get opportunities from a grant perspective into the equation, but also make sure that the other needs of social equity and perhaps small cultivators can be met through this fund in different ways, whether it's, at Rhodes, I know a lot of people wanted branding and marketing materials initially. Well, what do you need now? So how can we make sure that those buckets of support from a small business perspective are well thought out? They might always be well intentioned, but well thought out, and make it so that those in the economic committees over at the legislature kind of understand that this market isn't all too dissimilar from other agencies who get this support from a state level that we are severely lacking here.
Yeah, yes. I mean, what I like about this approach really is, our committees of jurisdiction that oftentimes have to approve this money or at least fight for it, don't, at least on the House side, they don't know economic development, so when you say we want $1 million for this, they're like.
And it was an especially tough year last year to make that request, no matter what you were requesting. Not saying that's going to change this year, but I think we want to go in better prepared to answer the why.
Yeah.
Why this amount, why these resources, and a lot of that will come directly from licensees that we've heard from in one way or another over the last X amount of years.
Yeah. And those same committees, they know farm forest viability very well, and they know how much money they're giving them to every year. Things just start, or Working Lands Enterprise Board or wherever else, where they start getting squeamish is when you start saying the word cannabis involved, and really it doesn't need to be that. If they know, these committees that, Mike Marcotte, he's been the chair of that committee for 10 years, like he knows, the return on investment you get when you put $1 million into an industry. They just get a little bit nervous when you're putting $1 million into the cannabis industry for some reason.
And, I know a lot of folks need this assistance now, but unfortunately the reality is, to your point, like this perception is like turning an aircraft carrier, and it takes all of us from a professional perspective to show need, and that this is going to be spent in a way that furthers an actual business interest and nothing more than that. Julie, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I don't. I was just going to circle back to, so Pepper, you talked about holding a series of meetings related to the fees. I think we would do that too, in terms of, fleshing out the details of, the sort of social equity cannabis business development side of the report. Do you imagine doing those at the same time? Or do you think the subject matter is so big it needs to be separate?
Well, here's the deal. You're going to have the results of those focus groups. Mm-hmm. And I feel like bringing the results of those focus groups and even some of those questions to a broader audience will be generally helpful. And again, I think that there's a lot of overlap between these two questions about fees and economic development. Because I think what they really want to get at on the fee question is, how do we better support these small businesses? Not, do we need to drop their fees by 25% or increase these fees by 50% or whatever else? So I think that it would be very appropriate for us to do those together, and maybe find ways to, interweave the questions that we need answered. And because this report to me is not just going to be, here's the fee section and here's the economic development section. Yeah. It's that,
And I will just add that, of course, over the last X amount of years, we've heard a lot about direct sales. There's a place for that in this report, but I'm hopeful that folks can kind of think a little bit, to be a little bit more thoughtful in what else could help their business besides just that, arrow in the quiver, so to speak, because I think that there's a lot of other things that we should be thinking about in addition to figuring out a way to make that recommendation that might be found palatable at the legislature. We saw the pushback from farmers markets, and I don't want to make the small business support like nothing from the Cannabis Business Development Fund supports or is used to utilize direct sales of your product. It's more about business coaching on how you perform the daily functions of your business, and what are translatable skills that you might want that you have interest in now, that if this isn't the business that works, what can you take to the next business, whether it's cannabis or not? So I'm hopeful that we can get some answers that kind of look beyond what we have already heard at the board and kind of help better align where we can really make an impact below the hood. You know what I mean?
And I don't mind having the conversation about the direct to consumer. I just, we've seen the resistance every single year. So until we can answer those questions explicitly, how are you going to make sure that all the taxes are being collected, every sale is transacted, that you aren't creating, 400 new, theoretical public safety risks.
I think there's room for it in the context of tiering retail,
Right.
like the conversation at least. And I'd love to couch the conversation there and focus on small business support with these other kind of learned skills that we can really, or grant making opportunities to better your business in other ways. Right.
Great.
All right. Well, I guess for people that are wondering what the next steps are, I think it's just stay tuned for some kind of targeted and kind of mediated public meetings specifically for this report. That I think Julie, Kyle, and I will have some kind of specific questions and discussion topics to raise. And again, if you'd like to be notified specifically of when those are happening and participate, or give us some food for thought ahead of time, ccb.info@vermont.gov. Otherwise, we'll just kind of keep our newsletter and our kind of calendars up to date with that information as they start coming together. Anything else for today? I don't think we have anything left on the agenda. Nope.
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, everyone.